A couple of years ago, my wife and I decided to start seriously planning and thinking about starting a family. We went back and forth a lot to make sure we were on the same page, and last year we began the application process with an adoption agency. It started with a couple of in-person meetings and a couple of classes to make sure it was what we wanted, and we were thrilled with it all, so we continued to the next portion, which was a full health examination. There was a bit of delay with our doctor's office getting them the information and then the holidays, but we learned last week that the adoption agency received the examinations and would be in touch to discuss next steps. For reference, my wife has something called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I won't get into the specifics, but she had what I can only describe as an insanely difficult childhood. But she takes medication and has regular therapy. There are the odd few-day stretches here and there where she's at her lowest, but overall, she manages it very well. About an hour ago, I got a call from the adoption agency saying they won't be able to proceed with an adoption, but thanked us for our time and interest. I assumed it was my fault at first. I had just quit smoking before we started the process, plus some slightly high blood pressure. But they went on to say something along the lines of, "Our concern is how a child placed with you and your wife won't receive proper attention or care given the severity of your wife's condition." I tried pleading her case and explaining how everything is managed properly, something our doctor even agreed with. But they seem to have already made up their minds. I asked bluntly if this is a problem we'd run into with other adoption agencies or just theirs, and in a roundabout way suggested that I should be suspicious if an agency would place a child with us. I'm pretty heartbroken about it, to say the least, but I know this is going to destroy my wife. For reasons I won't get into, biological children are out of the question, and with my wife's past, adoption is something we really felt was right for both our lives. I know I just have to tell her, and I plan to when she gets home from work, but I'm really not sure how to approach this and support her. We've had our hearts set on this for so long. Any advice on how to go about this would be really great. Apologies if this post is all over the place. I'm a bit of a mess myself. Edit. Thank you all for your kind words and DMs. My wife was understandably devastated, and we got her into a session this morning. The therapist seemed confused, given how well she's been handling her condition for the last decade or so. A few commenters and one DM seemed to suggest this was for the best, and I wanted to clarify that my wife has been managing everything well and functions like any other person. I don't think it's fair to suggest this was for the best, because her condition would make her a bad mother. In any case, we ended up calling around this morning and asking a few other adoption agencies what their thoughts were. And they more or less said the same. It would be very unlikely we'd be accepted for adoption. We've chatted about it a bit and signed up for some couples counseling. Think we're going to close the book on this part of our lives and try to move forward from it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This breaks my heart for you both. It's not her fault she had such a traumatic childhood, and it sounds like she's doing the work to heal and manage her mental health as an adult. Adoption agencies vary on what mental health situations they will approve in adoptive parents. They also look at the situation as a whole. For example, how long has the person been in therapy? How stable is their employment and marriage? What kind of outside support system will they have for their child? It's the entire picture, not just one thing. They do this because it's ultimately about finding a healthy family for the child, not a child for prospective parents. That's not to say that you and your wife can't provide a healthy family, just that the agency has only seen a small portion of your overall life and made their call based on that limited data. As an adoptive parent, it's incredibly difficult. All adopted children will have their own trauma to contend with, even if adopted as infants. It can really show you areas where you are not healed when you thought that you were. I wouldn't change the decision because they are my child, and I can't imagine life without them. But I did not truly know what I was getting into. Most adoptive parents I know feel the same way. I think go to therapy together and discuss, find an adoption-informed therapist and do a few sessions with them so they can help you understand how your unique situation will manifest in parenting. After you have those tough but important conversations, you can decide if you want to move forward with another agency. Don't give up, but look at it as an opportunity to dig deeper in order to be the best parent possible if and when the time comes. Comment 2. Some thoughts as a psychologist. 1. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, is an extremely useful and important concept, but is not yet an accepted psychiatric diagnosis. When I say accepted, I mean it is not in the DSM-5 and therefore cannot be billed by insurance companies. 2. The first thing I would do is have your wife access her medical records to see exactly what is in there and what diagnoses are being used. It's very possible that her providers are using the term complex PTSD in therapy sessions, but putting something else in the notes for billing purposes. A diagnosis that can share many symptoms with CPTSD is borderline personality disorder. And unfortunately, that diagnosis could be a red flag for adoption agencies if it is in her records. 3. I would also seek an independent psychological evaluation that would hopefully support your application. Many psychologists are asked to weigh in on parenting issues, but this could also fall under a fitness for duty kind of assessment. Those evaluations explore in detail a client's psychological symptoms and how those may impact their ability to fulfill the duties of a job. In this case, the job would be that of a parent. You have lots of options here, and all is not lost. Wishing you and your wife the best of luck. Edited for clarity. Now for the update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening since my last post. First off, thanks for all the support and advice you've given us. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but there's a lot to share. After we got the news from the adoption agency, my wife and I were pretty shaken. We spent a lot of time talking and trying to figure out what our next steps should be. We even started couples counseling, which has been a huge help in processing everything. But here's where things get interesting. My wife's therapist, who's been with her since the beginning of her journey with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, was really surprised by the adoption agency's decision. She's seen my wife make incredible progress over the years, and she couldn't understand why they would deny us based on her condition. So she did some digging. It turns out the therapist found out that the person who reviewed our case at the adoption agency had a history with my wife. They went to the same high school, and this person was part of a group that used to bully my wife. We were shocked. It seemed like a crazy coincidence, but the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. This person had a grudge and used their position to sabotage our adoption application. We were furious, but we also saw an opportunity. We gathered all the evidence we could, including statements from my wife's therapist and doctor, and we decided to confront the agency. It was a tense meeting, but we laid everything out on the table. The agency was taken aback and promised to look into the matter. While we waited for the agency to investigate, my wife and I tried to keep our minds off things. We focused on our relationship and our own healing. It was during this time that we discovered something that would change everything. My wife had been doing some family research, trying to understand her roots and her past. She'd always known that her family history was complicated, but she stumbled upon a secret that her parents had kept from her. She found out that she had a half-sister she never knew about. This half-sister had been put up for adoption years ago, before my wife was even born. It was a closed adoption, and my wife's parents never spoke of it. But now, with the internet and a bit of sleuthing, my wife managed to track her down. Meeting her half-sister was an emotional roller coaster. They had so much in common, and it was clear that they both had been affected by their difficult childhoods. But there was also an instant connection, a bond that couldn't be denied. As they got to know each other, my wife's half-sister revealed that she had been considering adopting a child herself. She was in a stable place in her life, but had always felt something was missing. When she heard about our struggles with adoption, she made a surprising offer. She suggested that if we were still interested in adopting, she would support us and vouch for us. She had connections in the adoption community and felt that with her backing, we might have a better chance. We were touched by her generosity and decided to give it one more try. We approached a new adoption agency, this time with the support of my wife's half-sister. The process was still rigorous, but we felt more hopeful. And then, just when we thought things were looking up, the agency called us with some news. They had reviewed our application and were impressed with our dedication and the support system we had in place. But they had one more surprise for us. They had a child in mind for us, a little girl who had been in the foster system for a while. She needed a family, and they thought we could be the perfect match. We were over the moon. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and we couldn't believe our luck. We started the process of meeting the little girl and preparing our home for her arrival. But then, just as we were getting ready to welcome her into our lives, we got another call from the agency. They had uncovered something during their final checks, something that would turn our world upside down once again. The little girl we were about to adopt, she was actually my wife's niece, the daughter of her half-sister who had been put up for adoption years ago. It was a family connection that no one had expected, and it left us all in shock. Boyfriend of 7 years has condom poking out of box on his nightstand and claims he puts them in his duffel bag out of habit. I suspect he's cheating due to his friend's behavior and past lies. Oh boy, was I right, me, 26-year-old female, and my boyfriend, 29-year-old male, have been together for 7 years, living together for 3. We have been severely lacking in the intimacy department, which we have been working on. I use the rhythm method for birth control, so we use condoms on my fertile days. He bought a new box and left it on his nightstand. For about 2 months, one condom poked out of the box, shiny silver side facing up, and rested on top of the ajar box. I always noticed it because the sun would reflect off of it. Last week, I joked in my head about how it has been in the same spot for so long and how we haven't used them in months. The other day, he left for a boys' trip in Nashville for a friend's birthday, who I'm particularly not a fan of. This friend cheats on all of his girlfriends and sleeps with everybody, including married women. He's not a great person, but he's been his friend since childhood. The morning he left, I looked at the condom box, and the shiny silver one hanging out of the open box was gone, meaning the box was tampered with no more than 2 days before he left on this trip. I confronted him over text, which wasn't my initial plan, but I was going insane thinking about it, and I needed to ask. He said that he's been putting condoms in his duffel bag, which he takes to work on days he plays basketball or goes home to his parents' house for dinner in the evening, since he was 17, and it's just a habit that he does. When we lived separately, he would always keep the box in the duffel bag side pocket, which sat next to his bed every night, and would reach in when we needed one. Now that we live together, we are never intimate outside of the house, unless we are traveling, which is just once or twice a year. Yet, he still keeps some in his duffel bag and some on the nightstand. When confronted, he said he had routinely put some in his bag when he bought the box a few weeks ago. It was bought longer than a few weeks ago, and I just can't get over the fact that the box was noticeably tampered with after a long period of time being untouched and collecting dust. He got angry and called me insecure for accusing him of potentially cheating on me, for not trusting him, and for me calling him a liar. He doesn't have a known history of cheating on me, but in the past, he did create an elaborate lie about being back at his house after a night out with the boys, including the cheater birthday boy, when they were actually at a strip club. He forgot I had his location. He said he lied because he thought I'd be mad that he tagged along with his friends to the strip club. What are your thoughts? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, he's been in the habit of putting condoms into his bag for 12 years, even though you've been in a relationship for 7? Yeah, that's a load of nonsense, isn't it? Laugh out loud. He must have hundreds of unused ones in there over the course of 12 years. I can't say for certain whether he's cheating, but I know his reason is total garbage. He lied about the strip club. He's lying about the condom. Comment 2, of course, he was planning to have intimacy with other people. He already lied to you before. His reaction says you were spot on, and his friends are sleazebags. Do you seriously think he's friends with these guys and he isn't also a greaseball? Don't be silly. Thank whatever God you pray to that you found out before you got pregnant by this man. Now for the update. Hey everyone. It's been a rough couple of weeks since I last posted about the mysterious case of the disappearing condom and my boyfriend's suspicious boys' trip to Nashville. I know you've all been waiting on the edge of your seats for an update, so here it is. After my boyfriend left for his trip, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I remembered how he'd lied about going to a strip club before, and it made me uneasy. I tried to distract myself by hanging out with friends and binge watching my favorite shows, but my mind kept wandering back to him and that shiny silver condom wrapper. A few days into his trip, I got a text from him. He said he missed me and couldn't wait to come home. I wanted to believe him, but doubt was eating away at me. I decided to do a little digging. I remembered that his duffel bag was still in the closet because he'd taken a smaller bag for the trip. Curiosity got the better of me, and I checked the side pocket where he said he always kept a stash of condoms. It was empty. When he finally came back, things were tense. We sat down to talk, and I brought up the empty side pocket in his duffel bag. He looked surprised, and then admitted that he had taken the condoms from the nightstand and put them in his smaller bag for the trip. He said it was just a force of habit, but I wasn't buying it. The next day, I was at work when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman who claimed she had met my boyfriend in Nashville. My heart sank as she told me they had hooked up, and she found my number on his phone. I was in shock. I couldn't believe he would do this to me. I confronted him as soon as I got home. He denied everything at first, but when I told him about the phone call, he broke down and confessed. He said it was a one-time mistake and that he regretted it the moment it happened. He begged for my forgiveness, but I was too hurt and angry to even think about forgiving him. We had a huge fight, and I told him I needed space to think. He packed a bag and went to stay with his parents. I spent the next few days alone, trying to process everything. I felt betrayed and heartbroken. But then, something unexpected happened. I got a message from the woman who had called me. She apologized for getting involved and said she felt guilty for ruining our relationship. We ended up talking, and she told me that my boyfriend had been bragging about his girlfriend back home and how much he loved her. She said it seemed like he truly regretted what he had done. I was confused and didn't know what to think. I loved my boyfriend, and we had been together for so long. But could I trust him again? I decided to meet him for coffee to talk things through. The conversation was hard. We both cried and apologized to each other. He promised to do whatever it took to make things right and to earn back my trust. I told him I needed time to heal and that I couldn't make any promises. It's been 2 weeks since that conversation, and things are slowly getting better. We're going to couples therapy, and he's been open and honest with me about everything. It's going to be a long road to recovery, but I'm hopeful that we can get through this together. Brother and his wife always let me stay with them during family gatherings, but this year they didn't attend my wedding, and when I asked if my husband could stay with them, my brother said no because he hates lawyers and my husband is a corporate lawyer. I tried to explain, but he said I'm no longer welcome. I'm hurt and angry. I tried to reason with him, but he found out about a controversial development project involving my husband's company. His wife publicly criticized the company on social media. I tried to reason with him, but he refuses to listen and decides to no longer host family gatherings. I'm devastated. Hello, I'm having trouble with my brother and would like advice on how to smooth things over with him and his wife. My brother and I have always had a decent relationship. We're not necessarily those siblings who are best friends or anything, but we've never had major arguments or had trouble getting along. The same with his wife. They have been married for almost 9 years. She has always been very sweet, and I've always loved them. My family is pretty spread out now. Parents live in the Midwest, brother lives in New England, I live in the Southeast. We usually get together a couple times a year in the city where my brother lives, as it is a big city and easy for everyone to get to. Most of my family, brother included, works in education, so our trips usually correspond with school breaks, and spring break is typically when we get together. My brother and his wife have always let me stay with them to save on money while I am there, and they have always said I can stay with them whenever I want. However, that seems to have changed this year. I got married this year, 4 years together with my now husband. My brother and wife did not attend the wedding, and I understood it was because of travel difficulties. But now I suspect they simply did not want to attend. Earlier today, I called my brother because I wanted to ask if they are all right with my husband joining me and staying with them this spring. I was expecting them to say it was fine, but I got surprised when my brother answered me. Well, to be honest, no. Wife and I do not want my husband in our home. I was surprised. I know it is his right to decide who comes into his home, but he has always been so ready to invite me in that it didn't even occur to me it would be a problem. The conversation got awkward, and I tried to tell him that my husband is very clean and polite and wouldn't be a burden on them. But my brother cut me off. He told me that it wasn't an issue of my husband being a bad guest, but my brother dislikes my husband over my husband's job. My husband is an attorney. He works in business law and is currently an in-house counsel for a property and construction company in our area. I didn't even really know how to respond to what my brother said, and I asked him what he was talking about. My husband is just a lawyer. Brother said something like, "Yeah, he's a corporate lawyer," and said some stuff about my husband lying in court to help big companies evict people or something. I tried explaining that isn't really what my husband does. He mostly just reviews contracts for legality. But brother didn't want to hear it and just said he doesn't like business types and doesn't have a high opinion of lawyers either. This all seemed like it was coming out of nowhere, and I didn't know how to answer. I reminded him that I'm not my husband's job, and brother answered me rather coldly, "Yeah, but you married him." We didn't really have much else to say. I tried to tell him it's just a job, and it isn't as big of a deal as my brother made it to be. Brother kept answering that it's what he does every day, and he is his job. In the end, he basically told me that I'm not invited to stay with them anymore. It really hurt, and I'm pretty angry with him right now. Plus, I'm not sure we'll be able to visit in spring without being able to stay at my brother's. The whole issue has thrown a monkey wrench in my plans, and I'm not sure what to do. My brother is being unreasonable, right? Is there any way to smooth this over at this point? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I was expecting a much more controversial or salacious job than being a corporate real estate lawyer. Your brother is weird and is picking an even weirder hill to die on. It's not your place to smooth anything over. If you still want to go and see the rest of your family, you and your corporate lawyer husband could always stay in a hotel or an Airbnb. But maybe skip it and plan to visit your parents another time instead. Comment 2. Lawyer here. The fact that your brother would make a gross generalization about a profession says far more about him than it does about anyone else. Apparently, he didn't go to your wedding because your husband is a lawyer? Sounds like he's giving you a choice to make. And as lawyers sometimes say, between your husband and your brother, it sounds like something of a Hobson's choice. Good luck. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post about the issue with my brother and his wife not wanting my husband in their home. I've been trying to wrap my head around everything and figure out what to do next. So, after the initial shock of my brother's cold response, I decided to give it a few days before reaching out again. I thought maybe he needed some time to cool off, and I hoped we could have a more rational conversation. But before I could even pick up the phone, my brother beat me to it with a text that left me reeling. He said that he had found out my husband's company was involved in a controversial development project in our hometown. The project would displace a number of families, and my brother was furious. He accused my husband of being part of the problem, and by extension, me too. I couldn't believe it. My husband had mentioned the project before, but he had assured me that his role was strictly legal and that the company was following all the proper channels. I tried to explain this to my brother, but he wouldn't listen. He said that as an educator, he couldn't stand by and watch families get torn apart for profit. He even brought up our own childhood, how we had grown up in a tight-knit community, and how important that was to us. I was stunned. My brother had always been passionate about his work, but I had never seen him this angry. The next day, things escalated even further. My brother's wife posted an article about the development project on social media, calling out my husband's company for their actions. Friends and family started commenting, and before I knew it, there was a full-blown debate happening online. I felt like my personal life was being put on display for everyone to judge. I called my brother, desperate to make him see reason. I reminded him of all the times we had supported each other, like when I helped him through his tough first year of teaching, or when he was there for me after my first big breakup. But he just kept saying that this was different, that this was about standing up for what's right. I couldn't believe how quickly things had spiraled out of control. My husband was upset too, feeling like he was being unfairly targeted for just doing his job. He reminded me that he had always been there for my family, like when he helped my brother draft a legal document for his school pro bono. But my brother wouldn't budge. He said that he couldn't look past what my husband's company was doing, and that if I was going to stand by my husband, then I was part of the problem too. It was like he had forgotten all the years of history we had together, all the good times we had shared. I was at a loss. I had always thought of my brother as someone who was fair and understanding, but now he was acting like someone I didn't recognize. It was like all the trust and camaraderie we had built over the years didn't matter anymore. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my brother dropped another bombshell. He told me that he and his wife had been talking, and they had decided that they didn't want to host any family gatherings anymore. He said that they needed to focus on their own lives and that they couldn't deal with the drama. I was heartbroken. Our family gatherings had always been a highlight of the year, a chance for all of us to come together and catch up. And now, because of this one issue, it was all falling apart. I tried to reason with my brother, to remind him of the importance of family, but he was adamant. He said that he had to do what was right for him and his wife, and that I needed to respect that. So now, here I am, trying to figure out what to do next. My husband and I are considering finding a hotel for the spring break, but it won't be the same without the family time we're used to. And I can't help but feel like there's a rift between my brother and me that might never be repaired. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.